and then we can all get a nice little summary and a transcript. So let's just pick up on that thing. So every company that I work with, they have a mission, they have a vision, and they have values. But sometimes you see people not behaving consistent with that. And like Chrissy said, the true north of an organization is the culture that they've defined and the culture that they share with people. Now, I love using this example, and people who have been in my sessions before would have heard me speak about akabanga, right? Akabanga is this most amazing chili oil. I love spicy stuff, and I think I used to be what the first time I discovered akabanga in Rwanda. They smoke these chilies and then they infuse them in this oil. I got so addicted to this stuff that I used to eat to have akabanga. I always had a little Ziploc a bag with akabanga in my handbag. They actually put it in an eyedropper, and there's a warning that says don't use more than 4 drops. The stuff is amazing, people. On eggs, on meat, it's just amazing. But why I love the story about the akabanga, it's so distinctive that if you put it in another bottle and if you strip off that logo and the label on the bottle, and you give me chili oil in Italy or you give me chili oil in Minnesota, I will still know that it's akabanga. And what we don't do as organizations, we don't make our culture so distinctive that we can feel what it feels like, even if I hide the logo. So I want to share with you maybe just a quick example before we go into a breakout room, and I will ask you, let's discuss this further in the breakout room, but let me share with you just a fantastic example of a company, and Christy, you made me think of this, a company that was faced with a very terrible situation. And in that situation, they had many options, but they chose one that was 100% aligned with what their promise, with what their promise were. Let me just quickly open this, and I want to share this with you. So I might get the dates wrong. But Johnson and Johnson is the producer of Tylenol, and I think somewhere in the 80s, maybe middle 90s, around there, uh, there were people that died from Tylenol, and it kind of happened in the Chicago area. One person died, and then the family mourned that person so much that they obviously cried quite a bit, had a headache, took the same Tylenol that that person died from. At the time, they didn't know why these people were dying, and two more people in the same family died. And Johnson and Johnson had to obviously the press broke. If you go and Google this stuff, you'll see the news reports, and that was just horrible, right? So, they didn't know whether there was something wrong with the medicine. Later, they found that the Tylenol was spiked with cyanide. Um, but they had to make some decisions very, very quickly. Decisions that would cost them a lot of money. Um, But I want to quickly just share with you, and I'll put this up on the screen. I'm going to drop it in the chat for you as well. But this is what they stuck to during this time. So let me just, I want to read you what their credo, what their credo is, and how they made decisions during this time. So, and this credo speaks to all of these stakeholders, but I'm going to read the first bit so that you can see how important this is. The credo goes like this: We believe our first responsibility is to the patients, doctors, and nurses, to mothers and fathers, and all others who use our products and services. In meeting their needs, everything we do must be of high quality. We must constantly strive to provide value, reduce our costs, and maintain reasonable prices. Customer orders must be serviced promptly and accurately. Our business partners must have an opportunity to make a fair profit. We are responsible to our employees who work with us throughout the world. We must provide an inclusive work environment where each person must be considered as an individual. We must respect their diversity, dignity, and recognize their merit. We must have a sense of security, fulfillment. They must have a sense of security, fulfillment, and purpose in their jobs. Compensation must be fair and adequate, and working conditions clean, orderly, and safe. Then they talk about health and well-being. They talk about the communities within which they work, and they talk about the stockholders. So this credo was challenged, and what ended up happening is year after year they would gather a group of leaders and people in the organization and challenge this credo, and this credo ended up being so good. And when it was tested during this terrible event, they were faced with the decision to live it. Now, they had to recall millions and millions of dollars of Tylenol during this time, and they were advised by the FBI to not make quick decisions on recalling this medicine. And they actually went ahead and they did that. And Tylenol, obviously, as a brand, took a massive hit, but the success story is that it came back and it recovered from this incredible reputational damage. Obviously, the fact that it was tampered with helped them. But during this time, every meeting they had, they went back to this and they said, our responsibility is to the patients, the doctors, the nurses, to mothers and fathers, and all others who use our products and services. So they stuck to staying in their integrity. What this led to was a whole host of research around how to create tamper-proof packaging, setting a new standard for how medicines get delivered to stores, how the integrity of the packaging gets, kind of maintained. So there was a lot of, I mean, obviously lives were lost, but a lot of good that came out of this mantra that drove them to say our responsibility is to the people who use our products, and we need to always do the responsible thing. Now, just getting back to Christy's point, I've challenged executive teams when they make decisions that are not aligned with their values, and they make short-term decisions to say, we're going to choose profit here over, our values. And I go, well, either the values are wrong or the decision is wrong. If you're not going to make a decision aligned to your values, then we must challenge the values and say, not we always act in the best interest of our clients. We sometimes act in the best interest of our clients, right? But you can't have both. You can't have the flexibility to make non-values aligned decisions and wear your values when it suits you, because that creates chaos inside an organization. And employees in the front line, they're watching the leaders. And I was working with a team the other day, and the team said to me, I asked them a question and they said, well, Chantal, it depends who you ask in the organization, right? If you go to this leader, you get this answer. And if you go to that leader, you get that answer. So, sometimes we do play them off against each other, Christy, like a divorced couple, right? We go, no, mom said, and then we go, no, dad said, right? And that's unfortunately what leaders open themselves up to, is that if there's inconsistency, people are not going to believe it. Okay, there's one more thing that I want to tell you before I send you to a breakout room to discuss what this looks like in your organization and share with your colleagues a little bit of what are those values. I want to get back to the employee, right? And for me, this is a universal truth, and I firmly believe this. The way employees feel every day at work is how they will make customers feel. right? We do 5 days of training in CX mastery. We teach people about emotions. We teach them about the frequency of emotions. We teach them about the science behind emotions, right? If I come into this Zoom room angry and pissed off, I will transfer that to you. You will say to me, Shh, Chantal, that session didn't feel nice. You might not be able to put a finger on exactly what was wrong, but we have mirror neurons. Okay, do you want me to quickly show you a little experiment of mirror neurons? Let's quickly do that. Okay, so I'm going to ask you to pretend there's a lemon in your hand. Okay, lift your hand, look at the lemon. Right now, we are going to cut that lemon. Slice the lemon. I want you to do 4 slices so that you have a wedge. Okay, you got your wedge of lemon. Okay, I want you to close your eyes and imagine that you are sucking that lemon. Just close your eyes and pretend you're sucking the lemon. Okay, who feels something funny going on in their mouth? Lebogang, tell me, my friend, what's happening there? Are you salivating? Are you feeling that little thing in your cheeks, right? Where you go, oh, that's a sour lemon. Okay.
Exactly, yeah.
You feel that. Okay.
I
And
can, yeah.
he doesn't even have a shot of tequila there to have after he sucked the lemon, right? So what did I just do? Okay. I just messed with your brains, right? Because you had the reaction as if you had a lemon, right? So we're playing with the mirror neurons in your brain that is so strong that you can actually imagine it and you can have a physical response to it. So that's how strong those emotions are, right? So if employees do not feel like they belong, they do not feel safe, you have this underlying fear running in the environment, and that fear will be transferred to customers. So the way employees feel at work every day is the way they will make customers feel. That's the equation. Employee experience equals customer experience, and culture is so big a part of the employee experience. When you come back from your breakout rooms, we will talk a little bit about safety, and I want to give you a few examples of what happens when there's not safety in the environment. Okay, are you ready for your breakout room? So let me just quickly set this up, and hmm, let me set this up, and we are 53 people. I want you to meet a whole lot of amazing people. So let's see. Shall we do, let's just do that. Okay, we have about 3 people per breakout room. There's a few people that, let me just, why do I have so many people that are just 2? Okay, Christy, you're one of the cool kids. Let's move you to a room where there's, oh, you're all part of the cool kids. What am I talking about? I just want to make sure that you are, um, look at Christy, he's smart, but I'm not looking. Okay, I'm just splitting you up so that we have no one that's alone by themselves. Um, PK, I'm putting you with some cool people. Chimera, I'm putting you with some cool people. Okay, I think now we have 3 people per room. Listen, if you land in a room and nobody arrives, I'm going to watch out for you and I'm going to automatically move you to another room. Okay, so don't drop. Don't drop. You are 3 per room. You're going to have 2 minutes per person. I want you to introduce yourself to the people in the room, right? And then I want you to share a bit what's going on with your values, right? Share a little bit of your values, what's happening with your culture in your organization. Let's pick up on this conversation of are your leaders making values aligned decisions? Okay, everybody clear? Give me a show of hands if you're clear. Thank you for that enthusiasm, Lebogang and Gracia. And you can just put your safety belts on, and I'm putting you in your breakout rooms. Be friendly, and the Zoom guards are going to put you with some awesome folks. Dorothy, hang on. I'm putting you in room 1. Thomas, I'm putting you in room 3. Okay, if your network's slow, you might move a little bit slower. Let's just quickly see. Hi, Genevieve. I know you've just joined us. We are just in a breakout room. We are going to be chatting soon. All right. Hi, Ethel. Everybody is on their way back.
It's always a shock, Chantel.
It's always a shock. I know you're going to tell me it wasn't enough time. I
Oh,
know.
wow.
No,
Yes, we are still talking.
there wasn't enough time. Oh,
Um,
okay. You're going to be talking some more later. I'm glad you're so excited. Did you meet awesome people? What did I tell you, right? I was definitely not lying.
Phenomenal
Okay.
people.
Okay. Let's hear in the big room. What did you learn from your colleagues? Let's hear from a few of you.
Oh, in our breakout with Judith, we touched about how of the gap between, let's say, preached values and lived values, everyday lived values. And sometimes, even though, let's say, 90% of the time, people live up to the value they preach and they are on the walls, etc. There is most of the times a small percentage of tiny little things that don't align to those values, but then they make the difference in the way people leave the organization. I don't know if I explain myself.
Yeah, that gap is often not even spoken to, right?
Yeah.
We kind of just ignore it. Yeah. Joanne, go for it.
I met Lexi and Namakau from Zambia and from US, and I enjoyed the value sharing session because there were two distinct. Whereas I was more familiar with Lexi's, Namakau shared something they do that is called that. I mean, they have different values, but there's one that stands out that says, "We are leaders, not sheep." And that has more or less gotten everybody within the organization to step up and be a leader. Everybody walks around with confidence and mutual respect. So people are able to own what they do end to end because they're leaders. They're not sheep. I mean, I don't even know which African. I don't know how that would be pulled up in Uganda and people don't be offended. But the fact that they're able to do it continuously, it's easier for people to also rise up the ladder and step up into bigger roles.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like that reminder that, leaders lead, right? They don't follow. They need to really illustrate those behaviors. It is very much like, our kids, who's got kids in the room? Yeah, these little things, they watch us all the time, right? Every time I'm inconsistent or I'm wrong, I have these three little things telling me, right? And they're teenagers now, so they're not even afraid of me, right? They just say it as it is. So it's really important from a leadership perspective. And I'll talk about skills a little bit later, but let's hear from Dorothy. Let's hear
Thanks
from
so much,
Dorothy.
Chantal. I'll start by apologizing. My camera is acting up, but yeah, next
I
time
can
will be
see it's
better.
broken. You've got a legitimate excuse because I can actually see your camera is not working. That's great, Dorothy. We'll just imagine your shiny eyes. Tell us what
Thanks.
was going on for you.
Okay, we were with Shran from South Africa, Maina from Kenya, Christine, fellow Ugandan, and I, Dorothy, Chaine, Uganda. We love the fact that we've met, at least we've met with Maina at CX Leaders Africa in Kigali. So it was awesome.
How
Yeah,
amazing is that, hey? That the Zoom gods put you in the same room with someone from
exactly.
another country that you met at the CX conference.
Yeah, Chantal, we said exactly that, that there are no accidents in God. There was
No.
some nice reflection from Mina, Maya Angelou's favorite. People will never forget how you made them feel. They can forget what you said. And it
Yeah.
resonated with all of us. We also briefly talked about the fact that, yes, when it comes to customer experience, the leader has to be brought into the equation and they need to set the tone. As we were waiting for Christine, then we came back out of the breakout room. So that's it from our side.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. Yolandi, you had your mic unmuted earlier. I thought you might want to say something.
I actually wanted to, but before I do, I just wanted to say that there's one of our team members online. Her name is Christelle. She is not well. She's listening in, so she would not be able to participate in the chat rooms for today's
Yes.
session, if that's okay.
No problem. I did see a message. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Look at I want to just quickly point out, look at how Yolandi is practicing the culture of care. That she's letting me know that there's a colleague of hers that's really passionate about the content, but she can't really actively participate, right? You are living a values moment there, and I want to celebrate you, Yolandi. Thank you.
Thank you. Um, so what I wanted to just say that in our room, I've spoken to Loveness from Swaziland, and she has given such a nice description of the culture. And even though she's spoken so very well about their culture, she says in general, it's like a song. She said, everyone knows the song, but if it starts to play, no one danced to it. And it was, for me, it was such a nice expression of exactly how I might experience it as well.
How amazing is that metaphor, right? It's a song, but nobody's dancing. And,
Everyone knows it.
everybody knows it, but nobody's really participating in that song. So, I want to quickly shift to another metaphor, right? And we are going to have some more time for more discussion. But I want to show you quickly something, and I'm just gonna let me spotlight myself so that you can see big on the screen. I want to quickly use this metaphor, right? My son built this for me. Let me see if you can see it. So it's a little terrarium, right? And I'm going to light it from the back so you can actually see it. It's a little terrarium, right? And okay, there you can see it a little bit better. So it's got some soil at the bottom. It's got some wood in the middle. It's got some plants, right? And the little bottle, it's got a light that you put on top of it. You've got nutrients that you spray on this. And he built this for me, I want to say to you, probably 3 or 4 years ago, right? And everything's carefully chosen. The plants are right for the size of this terrarium. It's very special soil that's got nutrients in. And at the moment, it has not really been maintained. So some of the longer plants here in the front, they are kind of taking over a little bit. It's not looking so green and as fresh as what I would have liked it to look. And I think often this is what we do with our cultures, right? We put stuff in there, but we rarely weed and put nutrients in there. Sometimes it's not got the right light, right? So if you think about what are the things that you need to put in an environment so that people thrive, very often leaders are not looking at culture as a live thing, as something that needs to be looked after. We need to tend it like we would do any garden, not just the terrarium, but a vegetable garden, right? If you plant seeds in a vegetable garden and it's a seed that grows a tomato plant, and when it dies, you need to put in more seeds, right? You need to prune things. You need to look at insects eating the different plants. And often leaders don't think about culture as a live thing, and it really, really is. We talked about emotional contagion, right? And if one person in an environment is scared, that fear, unfortunately, people catch it. Some of you that have been in live workshops with me, I love working with Lego, right? And the Lego becomes like a truth serum for teams, right? They can externalize things, and they visualize things. And I once had a young man build his work environment. I have these massive tubs of Lego, right? There's a small box, but I bring massive tubs of Lego and I put it in a big tub, and people can scratch around. And this young man built his work environment only using black blocks. And then he had a big black wall, and he had a monkey sitting on the wall. And on the one side of the wall, he had a pile of brown blocks. And on the other side of the wall, he had another pile of brown blocks. And on the inside of this room, he had skulls and bats and snakes. And I looked at this model, and after years of doing this Lego serious play, I can now identify the interesting ones, right? So I go to this young man's story and I said, tell me the story. This looks very intriguing. What's going on here? And he said to me, well, this is the pit of hell that I work in. And I said, what about the snakes? He says, people here are backstabbing snakes. You can't trust anyone. I said, tell me about the monkey. He said, oh, that's me. I'm the monkey. And I go, well, what is the monkey doing on the wall there? He goes, no, the monkey takes the shit from the one side of the wall, that's the brown blocks, and he shovels the shit to the other side of the wall. And then there's a pile of shit on the other side of the wall. Right. So I listened to the story, and we said, well, what are you going to do about this? Are you just going to sit there on your wall and shovel shit from the one side to the other side? He said, well, I don't want to, but I really need this job. And I said to him, well, if you don't change, nothing's going to change. And, I'm going to see you in 5 years and you're going to still shovel shit. So out of this discussion with this team, a lot of dark things emerged. So I had to debrief with the exco. I said, listen, your team doesn't seem like they're in a good space. What's going on here? And they said to me, well, we're about to restructure and a lot of people are going to lose their jobs, but they don't know yet. I said, they know. They know something's up, because I got a lot of brown blocks lying around. I got a lot of dark walls being built. It was quite grim. And they feel like they're shoveling shit from the one side of your organization to the other side. So if we think people don't know things and things are not transparent, people feel things. Now, talking about, I have teams that are saying to me, oh, we're great. We never have conflict in our team. Do you think that's a good thing, to never have conflict? That tells me two things. People are either too afraid to disagree, or they're dumb and they don't have opinions. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding about that one. What I see is people have given up, right? They're on autopilot. They no longer actually want to bring their ideas or want to bring their best thinking. So they're on autopilot. They go, well, I'm so tired of this. I'm not appreciated. I'm not trusted. I don't want to make a contribution anymore. Or they're so afraid to say something. Now, you would have heard about some of the stories of airline crashes where a pilot didn't speak up, a co-pilot didn't speak up about the protocols that weren't being followed. And one of the examples is, 200 people died. And from the black box, they could hear that, the co-pilot was challenging and then he gave up. he didn't follow through on the challenge to say, are you sure, our approach is not too fast or our approach is not too low? So when people don't challenge each other, the whole integrity and the whole problem solving in an environment suffers from that. Okay, so we've spoken about the kind of the downsides of culture. And you know what? People want to fit in so badly that they're afraid to rock the boat. They'll do anything to fit in. They'll go quiet. They'll agree to things that they're not happy with just to fit in. So we are fundamentally tribal animals, and our survival is based on the fact that we fit in. So I want to quickly share with you. We've spoken about the credo, right? So for all of you, if you currently cannot tell me in less than 1 minute what your culture is about, what culture do you want in your organization? What is your culture definition? If you say to me, listen, I've just it's in a slide pack, that's not good enough. Okay, so we need to be clear about the culture. And often companies outsource the definition of this to a marketing agency. They create beautiful slides. They come up with words that nobody cares about or understands. It's so important that your own team needs to define this. I love the Ritz-Carlton, and I'm going to mention that example, right? Because I spent some time in 2020 with both the Ritz-Carlton and Zappos because I wanted to learn about culture. I wanted to see what these organizations look like from the inside. Most of all, I wanted to test and see if it's real or if it's just a marketing ploy so that they can get people to talk about them at conferences. So the Ritz-Carlton, their motto is, we are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. They came up with that because their founder used to be very poor and used to see what it's like for people that are not that affluent to work in environments where there's very affluent people. And he was a young man of, I think, 14 or 15, I might get the numbers wrong, when he wrote an essay about service because his mother worked in a hotel and he always saw, how people are serviced. And he wrote this essay called We Are Ladies and Gentlemen Serving Ladies and Gentlemen. And that's really how that originated. And I spent time with the Ritz-Carlton, and it is real. It's tough to live the values, and you can go and have a look at some of these case studies, but they practice the culture every single day. In the busy hotels, I was part of one of their lineups. In the busy hotels, they have these values moments 3 times a day when they do a real stand-up. And what they've done very successfully is define the culture. So you need to start with defining the culture. Now, Christy, you mentioned the culture canvas earlier, right? And there's many examples. I did this training course with Gustavo, and I want to bring up that culture canvas for you, just so you can see how this has been articulated. So Gustavo Rossetti is the creator of this culture canvas, and in this culture canvas, you pretty much define everything that's really important in your organization. All right, so we start with purpose. Why do we exist? Then we look at values. Then we look at, what are the cultural priorities in the organization, right? Then we look at rituals. For me, culture is a set of practices and skills. And I'd love to, if you're open to it, I'd love to show you one of the skills that I think is crucial to having a healthy culture. Remind me, Christy, I'm going to ask you to remind me if I forget. The skill I want to teach you is the accountability model, how to hold people accountable. Okay, Christy, you're not going to let me forget.
No, because I'm also interested.
Okay, amazing, amazing. Thank you, thank you. You see,
One of my questions.
you see,
Because you have to hold people accountable to the standard.
you got to
Otherwise,
do that. You got
you
to
have
do
to
that,
rub them
right?
in and bring them back to what is the values we want to continuously live. So.
Stunning. Okay, so Christy will be my voice of truth there and remind me that I want to show you that model. Okay, so your culture is not defined until you have made clear what are some of the rituals we're going to practice. How will we deal with feedback? Because feedback is so crucial as part of a healthy culture, right? It's this little plant that I showed you. How are we going to trim that little plant if it goes wild? All right. Then decision making. How are we going to make values-based decisions in this organization? Who will we consult with? How will we own decisions? If we make the wrong decision, how are we doing a post-mortem on that decision to learn about it, right? Because I don't expect organizations to make decisions that are 100% right all the time. But I expect people to own their decisions, to say, in this moment, we decided something else to what we really wanted to. Why did we do that? Why did we choose profit over purpose? Why did we choose profit over people? And then discuss it. So decision making is really important. Meetings. People, meetings are it's like a little breeding ground for some of the bad habits in culture, right? I go to a meeting. This is a typical meeting. I go to a meeting and people arrive 10 minutes late. We're not clear about what this meeting is and why could it not be an email, right? Then we have the meeting and people talk about random stuff and nobody's clear about this meeting is for decision making. I'm going to share with you the 10 things that you need to know. And by the time we end this meeting, I would like for us to collaboratively make a decision or be clear about the information we need in order to make this decision, right? So people don't own the time. And what we had one of our clients do, we worked with a leadership team of 60 people, and we had them do an audit for a week of the meetings that they were in. We asked them how many people were in that meeting, what's your average salary per hour? And they had to calculate the cost of that meeting. And a lot of meetings is cover my ass meetings because I invite people to that meeting so that A, they can see I'm busy, B, they can see I'm significant, and C, I legitimize whatever I'm doing. And that's why I have a meeting rather than being very crisp. What I do these days, before I ask people in a meeting, I send them a 2-minute video to say, I need a meeting with you guys to do X. This is the background, right? How long do we need for this? Maybe we need 15 minutes. Meetings are standard set up for an hour, right? Fuck, you don't need an hour for a meeting, right? You can do some stuff in 15 minutes. You can do some stuff in a half an hour, but you can't do it if people show up 10 minutes late. And I had a boss long, long ago, and he once closed the door on a meeting that I was late for. 5 minutes. He had a rule, 5 minutes. If you're not in the meeting room within 5 minutes, which is actually still quite long, then we close the door and you're not allowed to come in because you disrespected everybody around the table's time, and meetings start on time. So if you arrive late, 5 minutes late, there's no catching up, right? I tell you, I've not been late since. I did miss one meeting earlier this year, and I tell you, I felt horrible. I sent the client a bunch of roses and a chocolate, and I just said, my intention was not to disrespect your time. I was just really disorganized, and I completely lost track of my time. But that's taking ownership. Okay, so we need to be clear about meetings. We need to be clear about norms and rules, what behaviors we want in the organization, and what creates psychological safety. I want to add something to this canvas. So make a note. I want to add something to this canvas. What are the cardinal sins what are the things we do not tolerate in the environment so that we can hold each other accountable. Things like, if you talk about someone behind their back and you don't have the courage to actually address an issue with them, but you address an issue about them behind their back, that doesn't create trust, doesn't create ownership, doesn't create openness. So think about what are the things that you don't want to tolerate, the things that are the enemy of a healthy culture, and define those things. All the things we had in the Mentee, I'll also send you a copy of this Mentee, right? Because that Mentee said these are the challenges we have about culture. Inconsistent decision making. You know, we treat these things very much as surprises. Oh, you know, there was a decision made. We didn't agree with it, but we didn't say anything. But now we bitch and moan behind their backs, right? Inconsistent decision making. We should make that predictable. If we see a decision that's inconsistent, what is the protocol we follow? Do we speak up? Do we go and see that leader? Do we get Exco together and say, I'm concerned. I want to protect our culture. Like I want to look after this plant. I don't want the plant to die. But if we don't stand up, the plants will die. Okay. Everybody happy with the culture canvas? Okay. Questions. Let's see if there's any questions. What I will do after this session, and I will get Gracia to remind me of this, Gracia, because my team is busy elsewhere today. I will give you a link to where you can do a little culture assessment, right? So that you can understand where your organization's at. Because before we define it, it's sometimes really good to look at the aspects of culture. And I want to share with you a model, quick model, called the Integrated Culture Framework by Spencer Stewart. I'm also gonna in the chat drop you a document, but don't look at the document now. I just want to quickly do it because I will forget if I'll include this in the email to you. But let me just drop this document. If you want to save it now, but don't read it now, I want to show you on the screen. This is the Harvard Business Review, and it's an article about corporate culture, and it's a leader's guide to corporate culture. But I want to talk to you about this model that they cover in this Harvard Business Review document. And can everybody see my screen? Okay,
Yeah.
so they pretty much stunning. Thank you. So they pretty much plot culture on this 4x4 grid. All right. And on this 4x4 grid, you know, we look at this axis is how people respond to change, right? Is it a very stable environment or is it a very flexible environment? Are people really adapting to change or are they against change? Okay, so that's that axis. Then how people interact in the organization. And on this side, we've got, you know, independence. So people function by themselves. And on this side, we've got interdependence, right? So they've defined these different, let's say, categories of culture. So if we look at the environment where people are very flexible and people are interdependent, right? That's where you get this element of caring. You get a lot of purpose, right? If we are looking at an environment where there's interdependence, but it's a lot of stability, typically the banks sit in this quadrant, right? There's a lot of safety, a lot of compliance, there's a lot of order, rules, standard operating procedures, right? So if you look at, you know, maybe some of our tech startups, you know, with the foosballs and the ball pits and the Zappos of this world, they in this quadrant where purpose and caring is high. And, you know, our banks are typically in the lower quadrant here where order, safety. Now, if we look at environments that are very stable, but there's a lot of independence, right? Here we're looking at authority, right? Where you've got a hierarchy in the organization where some people can do things and other people maybe don't have the authority to do that. And we look at areas that are very results driven, right? So typically, organization with a large sales force of agents that are on the road that are selling, they're very independent, but there's a lot of stability. They need to focus on results. And then our big quadrant here at the top, where we look at flexibility and independence, where there's a lot of enjoyment and there's a lot of learning in the organization. Okay, now a learning organization is interesting because as soon as people start learning, they become more engaged, they become more interesting, and they get higher levels of teamwork. But what happens in this model doesn't work like, you can go from being very orderly and safe to there, right? You've kind of got to move through these quadrants, right? If you're a results driven organization, you can't just become super purpose driven. You've got to move through being a learning organization so that you can get to your purpose. So think of this as, we are creating a pizza, and this pizza has maybe a little bit of learning on it and a lot of results. And the question is, do we need to look at a different blend of what happens in our organization? So the document I've shared with you in the chat that I will put in an email to you, if you've given me your email address, you can go and read that article and understand more about the Spencer Stewart model. But I think what happens in organizations, I've often, when I went to Zappos, right, they've got doggy daycare, they've got an air-conditioned dog pen where you can put your dog in. You can take your dog to work if the dog's been to training. I mean, I would love a place like that in South Africa where we can take our dog to work and there's doggy daycare and stuff like that. But some of the elements that's at Zappos, right? If I think about the ball pit that I got to play in and, some of the cool stuff around foosball tables, and there's a room where you can go and play instruments at lunchtime. If I went to my bank, right, and I walked into my bank and there's a ball pit with a whole lot of people in that ball pit and people playing foosball and I'm trying to get a home loan, somehow that doesn't work. So I guide a lot of people on be true to who you are. If you're a bank, be the best bank. Okay, don't try and be untrue to your true nature. Right. We do these culture evolution programs with executives, right? We take them out in nature. We actually take them on the ocean and we show them the big five of the ocean, right? Who's heard of the big five? The big five is easy on land, right? But the big five of the ocean is whales, sharks, seals, penguins, and dolphins, right? And we use these animals as a metaphor and we say, what is your culture like? Are you a whale? So you're big, you're graceful, you communicate well, you move slow. Or are you a shark where you are aggressive? You're an apex predator, right? The great white sharks are just magnificent animals, but you don't mess with them, right? Are you dolphins? Are you playful? And what is the composition that you need in your organization? Because you do need a little bit of whale. You do need a little bit of shark. You need a little bit of seal as well, right? What is that? What does that culture look like, and who brings what? And culture remains something that's alive. Okay, let me quickly pause. Questions?
I have a question, Chantal. Earlier we spoke about doing a culture assessment. When doing a culture assessment to try and identify the culture gaps in an organization, who would typically be the best people to do such an assessment? Because I think there's a major disconnect between what your C-level and your exco think the culture is versus what your employees and staff thinks it is. And is it something that you do with both, and you then identify the gaps between the two? But then there's also the utopia culture you want to instill into the business, which is also an additional gap that you need to try and figure out, measure, and develop a roadmap on how you get there in time.
Yeah. So Christy, I've done many of these assessments, right? And the way I can tell you the way I like to do it, culture is in the eye of the beholder. Okay, so culture is a perception of an experience that you're having in an environment, right? And if I assess culture on a Monday when people have had a weekend versus I assess culture on a Friday when they're about to have a weekend, that it might differ, right?
We
Also,
probably we see this when we do little surveys after paydays or after bonus. Then typically you get a much more positive culture, more engagement, especially after bonus month.
yeah,
And it's like we
absolutely.
find the balance because you want
So,
to have
so,
those true reflection.
so culture is like a heartbeat, right? It's like my pulse. Okay. If you took my pulse in Zumba class last night, I would seem very, very alive, right?
Mm.
If you took my pulse at 6:30 this morning, I would not seem very, very alive, right? So it's that pulse. So it's like leaders that do an employee engagement survey, right? And they go, ugh, people complain about the same shit every time. They don't get paid enough. The systems suck. Their leaders suck. And I go, well, why do you keep on asking? If you get the same answers and you're not willing to do anything about it, why do you ask? Oh, no, 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 but we have to do this once a year because just in case, just in case we get a different result, right? So I think culture is like a pulse, and I don't think you need culture surveys if your leaders are really doing what they should be doing. If they care about people like they care about plant, it shouldn't be the data shouldn't necessarily be necessary, but somehow we find safety in collecting that data, right? So for a culture assessment, right, it is like going into an environment. We take the pulse, right? So we ask people questions on email, right? We get some survey results back, but we also have focus groups where we have discussions with people at all levels of the organization. Because it's not just, oh, Christy, you have a fever. That means you have a bacterial infection and we need to blast you with antibiotics. It's no, we're going to look at your bloods. We're going to take your fever. We're going to take your blood pressure. We might even send you for an MRI scan because we really want to see what's going on inside. So when we do these diagnostics, we need to be very careful because sometimes the data lies. Okay, the data lies to us. We're working with human hearts, right? And I tell you what these human hearts feel. Sometimes they can't articulate it, and sometimes they're just way too scared to say anything. So when I work with people with the Lego, they tell me the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And I hear stories of, if they were the CEO, what would they be doing? And those are the stories, people want to do good work. I firmly believe, and maybe I'm living an illusion. You guys can tell me if I'm living an illusion. But I don't think people wake up in the morning and say, you know what, today I'm going to irritate people. I'm going to be evil, wicked, mean, and nasty. I'm not going to make a contribution. I believe all of you get up in the morning and you want to do the best job possible. And then shit gets in the way. And unfortunately, we haven't been trained adequately for the shit that gets in the way. We don't have the skills to cope with some of the complexities of this environment. And we want to be liked so badly. We want to be liked so badly. My last formal job in a corporate was 12 years ago. And I remember the remorse I felt. This company, they had interviewed me 6 times, different panels of people. And once I joined, they wouldn't go away. I said no to them many times, right? It's like that guy that keeps on calling you and he just doesn't want to take no for an answer, right? If eventually they weakened my defenses and they gave me so much opportunity and they threw so much money at me and I said yes. And I remember I was there a month and I got into the lift and every morning I was like, oh, energetic and peppy. For the people that know me, I mean, I do have bad days as well, but I'm very energetic. And I got into the lift and I said, good morning, everyone. And one guy looked at the other guy and spoke about me in the third person. He said, oh, she's new. I said, yes, my name is Chantal. Who are you? He goes, don't worry, it'll wear off. And I thought, oh my gosh, what have I done? Then they said to me, they called me in and they spoke to me about my dress code. And they said, you're not allowed to wear jeans at work. I said, but these are expensive, nice jeans, and I wear it with like a blazer. I mean, I'm wearing jeans now. It's like a man with a blazer and a nice shirt. And they said, no, 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 it's not acceptable. I said, wait, I came to 6 interviews. I wore a jean at every one of those 6 interviews with a blazer. That's how you got me, and now you want to change me, right? So then I was sent for coaching because I had cultural integration issues, and that's why they sent me to a coach. Needless to say, 2 years later, I told them what to do with themselves. And I said, I just want to state for the record, I never had culture integration issues. Your culture sucks. It's total incompatibility. It's not integration issues. So I think so many people experience that where it's very subtle, very subtle. It kind of comes through in little messages. But the moment I resigned, I had a 3-month notice period. I sat right outside of the CEO's office, right? I spoke to him every day. The moment I resigned and I gave my 3 months notice, he no longer greeted me or made eye contact with me. I became persona non grata. And that speaks to the culture, a culture of fear, a culture that they don't want to own anything, a very, very hostile culture. If you know the insights, do you know, anyone knows the insights wheels where they give you a color, you're a blue or a red or a green or a yellow? I was the only yellow in the company, just saying, so that was definitely not an open, very controlled, very structured culture. And that was a complete incompatibility. All right. Any questions? Any more questions? Okay, I'm going to send you to your breakout rooms again. I'm going to keep the rooms that you had before so you can chat more to those peeps. I'm going to watch for the people that might land in a room by themselves. I see Nicole already is in a room by herself. And okay, I'm just going to shuffle a little bit here. Gracia, I see somehow. I'm going to put a few of you with some other peeps just so you don't end up in a room by yourself. So what I want you to just discuss with each other is what was kind of your biggest learning this afternoon, like an aha moment. So just do a quick circle discussion in your room. What is an aha moment that you thought, wow, I haven't thought about that before? And maybe some action that you want to take away for your own organization. Okay, I am going to let me give you a little bit longer time because I don't want to be accused of rushing you. I'm going to give you 7 minutes in your rooms to have this discussion. If you land with someone else, right, that means the Zoom gods have decided, the Zoom gods have spoken, they've decided that they want you to meet someone else. So do a quick introduction and then you have your discussion. Okay, everybody happy? All right, and we will finish 5 o'clock sharp. And put on your safety belts, fold away your tray tables, you're going to your rooms. Okay, let's see. I just want to make sure that nobody's on their own. Okay, Ethel and Yolandi. And Kagisu seems to be by himself. Let's quickly move Kagisu to room 11. Okay, that looks good. Let's quickly see.
Think it's really as to that we have aligned experiences with different things. So when
All righty. Everybody's coming back. Amazing, 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 amazing.
Never enough.
Are you going to tell me that wasn't enough time?
I was
Yeah, Captain and I were
mid-sentence.
deep in conversation.
Yeah.
You know what my biggest wish is? My biggest wish is that we could all hang in a real room in the same place together, right? And someone spoke about the CX conference. There's an amazing CX conference. I think it's happening in September in Rwanda. So if you watch my mailing list, right? If you're on my mailing list and you get regular mails from me, I will make sure that I post that. It's great fun. I've met the most amazing people. One of my really, really good friends, I think she was in the room. She might still be in the room. Her name is Peace. She's just amazing. I'm so grateful for the places I get to travel and the pieces, the people, the pieces of people that I fall in love with, the people pieces I fall in love with. Okay, you can see I've used up my quota of words. Okay, great stuff. Anyone want to share what you've discovered? What was some of those aha moments? Let me get some feedback from someone whose camera is not on. Let's quickly see. Who do I see here? Let me see if I can get Judith to give us some feedback. Judith, what was some of those cultural aha moments?
I spoke about the cradle, and I thought that was really deep, that in the dark, dark moments, you have a true north, a guiding light, your Polaris, more or less, showing you exactly where or what you need to do in those dark moments. And I think the other moment for me, my team also shared, um, but the other thing about for me was the inconsistent decision making. What's the protocol we follow when you don't agree with a decision? Many times decisions are made. You're not happy with that decision, but when you're done with the meeting, you don't say anything, and after that meeting, you are very unhappy and go behind. And it's a culture. And I think the newer generation, one of the team members we were with said, the newer generations, the younger ones are speaking up and saying, I don't like that decision. I don't think so. But for us who are of the older generation, we really tend to not speak about decisions that we don't agree with most of the time. So what protocols can we put in place or can we follow when we do not agree with that decision? And that has really stuck with me, and I'm going to be doing something about it.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. I was quickly looking, want to just check. There's an amazing decision canvas. I'm probably not going to find it now. But I'll see if I can find that kind of a decision retrospective canvas, right? Where once we've made a decision, let's look at, what went right, what didn't go right. What were the things that we maybe had blind spots about, but doing those retrospectives is really, really important. So, as I said to you earlier, I believe that if we want a healthy culture, like gardeners, who likes gardening? I just heard from Vilma, she loves scrapbooking, right? There's some there's some there's some rules around everything that you practice. Every sports game has a set of rules, and it's really important that we understand those rules. Like in culture, communication is really, really important, and accountability is important. So, Christy, without reminding me, I want to quickly share with you an accountability model that we train in our brand warrior and our culture evolution training. We train this model, and this is a very, very effective model. And I want to maybe I'll ask someone to play with me. But let's quickly work through the model and then I'll show you how it works. And I see that you are squinting, Christy, so I'm going to make that nice and big. Let me just go to the screen. This is actually part of a workbook that I'm working on, so that's why it might be a little bit small. And oh, now it gets, there we go. Okay, how's that? Okay,
There.
that's a little bit better. Okay, so this accountability model consists of 5 steps, right? The first step is, what was the contract I made? What was the second step is the choice I made. The third step is around the consequence. And the fourth step is around what's the blind spot that I didn't see in making this choice and maybe not seeing the consequence. And then my fifth step is around the change. Okay, so let's create a scenario. Christy, can I play with you? Let's create a scenario where Christy asked me to produce a quick 5-page slide pack that he needed to take to Exco. And he wanted that slide pack yesterday afternoon, end of day. That was the ask he made. And I said, yes, absolutely, you can have it. So that's the contract I made with him. I made a contract to say, Christy, you need these 5 slides. I will have it to you by end of day, Wednesday. I did not send it to him. Okay.
Can we first define, because I think the specificity in these things always also play a role, and language in culture always also plays a role, because your concept of end of day might be different than my concept of end of day. So
That's what you still going on.
5 o'clock.
Absolutely. So I would have had this to him by 5 o'clock yesterday, and I did not send it to him, right? He didn't get it 5 o'clock. He didn't get it 5:30. He didn't get it 6 o'clock, right? He still doesn't have the slide back from me. Okay. So the choice I made was I got 2 other requests from someone higher ranking than Christy. And I decided it's going to be better for my career if I fast track these other things. And then I ran out of time and I didn't get to his slide pack, right? That's the choice I made. And a lot of the time people don't own their choices. It's still a choice I made not to send him the stuff, right? The consequence was that Christy checked his mail after 5 and he didn't see anything from me. He came in this morning, he checked his mail again, and he's having that meeting with Exco tomorrow, which is Friday. So if he got it on Wednesday, would have been able to prepare today to present it tomorrow. He would have had an opportunity to ask me some questions. So he's feeling uncertain, he's feeling anxious, and he's feeling a little bit angry that I let him down, right? That's the consequence. He's also feeling that he's possibly not going to be as prepared as what he would like to be in going to this Exco meeting. So my blind spot could be that I take on too much work, I don't effectively prioritize, and I don't ask for help. And instead of going back to Christy and saying to him, Christy, I've got this work from Joe and I just want you to help me prioritize. Is your stuff more important or is his stuff more important? I just stayed quiet and I thought, listen, I'll sneak that presentation into his inbox a little bit later, but I completely misjudged the time that it would take. And unfortunately, if he lets it slide and I let it slide, then we have a culture of just non-delivery and not respecting the agreements we make in the environment. Do you see how easily that can happen? I mean, in my earlier days, I led large IT teams of 120, 150 people. You know what? The people that were unreliable, I just stopped giving them work. I just pretended they weren't there. I just started working around them because I go like, I'm not going to give anything to that person. They're unreliable. Instead, as a leader, holding them accountable, saying, I do not want this to ever happen again. What was the contract we made? So just to complete this model, the change is then, how do I better prioritize? How do I not say yes to everyone? How do I make sure that I finish what I actually agree with people that I'm going to do? Okay, so you get the example, right? Okay, now there's two ways. Christy can say to me, Chantal, I'd really like to talk to you about this pack, right? If he wants to hold me accountable, or I can say, Christy, I really need to talk to you about this. I feel terrible. Can I take accountability? Right? So those are the two mechanisms. Okay. Do you guys want to hear how it sounds when he holds me accountable? Christy, do you want to give it a shot? Do you want to
Sure.
follow the structure so they can hear how that
Yeah.
sounds? And it doesn't matter if it comes out. I mean, you're an eloquent guy, but it doesn't matter if it's not like 100% wordsmith. Okay, we're gonna give him a shot. Let me put me and him on the screen. Okay, we put him on the screen and we put me on the screen. Okay. And do you need the model, Christy?
No, I've written it down.
Okay.
We've actually implemented a very similar
Okay.
model on now.
So I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to stop sharing, and he's going to now say to me he wants to have a word with me.
Hey Chantal, thanks for coming. I just quickly want to have a discussion with you regarding the agreement we made yesterday. I asked you to deliver a 5-slide slide pack that I needed for Exco later today. And unfortunately, you did not send anything, and neither did you notify me. So I had to scramble this morning to put something together. I want to understand what happened, why it happened, and why at minimum did you not let me know so that I at least could have done this last night. So I was completely caught off guard and blindsided by this. Can we talk about the fact that you agreed you will deliver this to me and you did not?
Yeah. So some people might get defensive, right? If me and Christy are on the same team and we know this accountability model, it is now my opportunity to say, Christy, I feel very bad. I made a choice not to send it to you, and I hear the consequence on you. The consequence was that you feel unprepared. I've really put you in a bad position, and I want to apologize for that. I think I want to get better at this. And what I did is I just took on way too much work. And I felt so ashamed to actually say to you that I'm not going to get it done. And it's gotten worse by me not speaking up and by not asking for help for prioritization. So, Christy, I want to say to you, I never ever want to let this happen again. And I'm so sorry. Can I work on it right now? What can I do to A, repair the relationship with you, and B, make sure that I get you this delivery? I'm willing to work whatever, I'm willing to do whatever it takes.
Thanks, Chantal. And I appreciate the accountability taken and the ownership. I think I've already compiled the presentation, but I think we need to reflect on this. And it's important to take the necessary learnings from this. And I also want to make sure and just check in with you on is, did you feel that you could not tell me that you've received 2 other requests from other ExCo members to help them with something? Was it,
You know what?
I didn't create a safe enough space for you to talk to me, to tell me, to drop me a WhatsApp? Because I think that's also on my part, that's something that I need to address if that was the case.
Yeah.
But if
Listen,
that's not
Christy,
the
I
case,
mean, I really trust you. I think what I did was I just underestimated that I would have enough time to finish everything. And I did think I would need to work after hours, and I didn't quite balance my after hours work with what my family demanded from me. And that's not your problem. I know that's not your problem, but I just misjudged the time that it would take. So I really want to ask you, give me an opportunity to build that trust, because I did let you down, and I'm really sorry about that.
and that's okay. But I think let's take the learnings from this and we move forward. And then next time, if you feel you're strained, just tell me, and we can make another plan, or I can ask someone. I'll get AI to do it.
Amazing. Thank you for being such a graceful leader. Thank you. Okay, everyone. So do you hear We didn't fight. It didn't feel odd. The relationship, both our aim is to mend the relationship and to keep the integrity of the fact that we want to stick with our commitments. All right, so very important skill. I cannot believe we're out of time, but I really want to say to you, thank you, thank you, thank you for the 2 hours that you spent with me. Thank you for being so passionate about culture. I'm going to package this in an email to you. I'll send you the resources we spoke about. And obviously 2 hours is not enough to cover the whole culture thing, but I'm going to send you that self-assessment that you can do. Keep on learning, keep on being passionate, and everything that you bring gives me hope about organizational cultures for the future. I want to wish you just a beautiful rest of your day. Look after yourselves and thank you for hanging with me. And you know what the rule is? We never leave the room without Lebogang, you said it, my friend.